join me in welcoming our second keynote speaker, Neil Van Heupt. Neil is head of learning design at Social Media College. He designs purposeful, engaging, collaborative learning experiences that will develop people to meet both the performance needs of their organization and their potential as individuals. Neil understands how adults learn in the modern workplace. Don't bore them, don't disrespect them. His design process is creative, human-centered, and performance-focused. He's a big fan of collaboration and connection and loves to bring people and ideas together. Neil is a fellow and active member of AITD, currently on the New South Wales Divisional Council, and a co-conspirator for the Sydney Instructional Design and e-learning meetup.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for jumping into the chat there. I'm going to come to that chat in just a minute, just moving it onto my screen so I can see it trickle through. So good to be here. I've been so keen to get to this NZATD conference. When I was working at the Australian Institute of Training and Development, we had just a great partnership with NZATD. So it's awesome to be here. Today's session is called Transforming You. I'm not using PowerPoint at all, which is why you've all got a piece of paper and a pen at the ready. Are you ready to get into this? I'm hoping the answer is yes. I do want to see that chat just kind of going off during this session, so feel free. If you have a question though, I'd actually recommend that you hold it right till the end because there is time for question and answers. And if you pop it into the chat kind of whilst we're running, I'm not likely to see it. If you want me to answer it at the end though, then make sure you hang on to it at the end. Now, I need to give ourselves a little bit of context for this presentation about transforming you. And if you're taking notes, this is the phrase that gives us the context for what I'm going to talk about. It's what I call possibility paralysis. Now, this morning at the Welcome to Country, it was really good to hear that I think it was the second king, welcomed shoemakers, carpenters, and blacksmiths. And that's actually part of our context because we have what I call this possibility paralysis. It was originally known as cobbler's syndrome or shoemaker's syndrome. And what that was about was that the shoemaker's kids were always running around barefoot. Now that expanded. It's not just a problem for shoemakers or cobblers. It's actually a problem for all sorts of trades. Like you go to the builder's house and it's kind of falling down or there's things that need to repair. You go to the mechanic and he's driving this beat up old car that's not quite firing on all three cylinders. You go to the plumber's house and there's a tap tripping in the kitchen and you kind of go, what's this about? And I've actually worked it out. So what happens with a lot of people with expertise is that they look at the problem. And so the plumber looks at his tap and says, how can I fix this? And instead of just going, I just need to change the washer, he goes, well, hang on a tick. If I'm going to get all my tools out and go and turn the water off, I should probably actually take the time. I should probably change that over to one of those new flick mixers with the ceramic taps. Now, if I'm going to do that, that's going to need the flexible lines to run onto my hard lines downstairs. That's a different set of tools I've got to bring up there. And well, if we're going to change it to the flick mixer, I could possibly change the sink over, because my husband's been wanting a new sink in the kitchen. And so maybe, and they get stuck because they can see the possibilities of a situation, but those possibilities are so big because they have expertise that they get paralyzed by those possibilities. Now, this possibility paralysis is actually the context for what I want to talk about here, because I think the same thing happens for learning and development people. And I don't just think that, there's actually some really strong research about it. So Laura Overton, in her Towards Maturity research, she surveyed 600 L&D people around the UK and Europe, and she found that 99% of them thought that they needed new skills, that their organisation needed new skills to cope with the future. 54% of them had put training in place to actually build those new skills in their organisation. But when it started to get personal and to say, do you have a plan for your professional development, only 37% of learning and development professionals actually had a plan. And I think that's because of this possibility paralysis. Learning and development people think, okay, what can I possibly do for professional development? And their heads just explode, because the possibilities for professional development, for upskilling, for getting future ready, those things are just enormous for the L&D person, and we don't make a plan. So today, I'm actually going to take you through how to make a plan for your professional development that will transform you. And that's the focus of what we're talking about today. Now, to our pen and paper. I'm going to give you a kind of visual structure to what I'm going to talk about here. Okay, so on one side of your piece of paper, you need to set it out like this: a slightly bigger circle in the middle and 4 circles around the outside. Leave a little bit of space between the circles. You are going to be doing some writing between them, and you are going to be writing some words kind of around the edge of each circle. Don't put anything in them at the moment. That's on side 1. Shouldn't take a lot of work to actually get that one going. On side 2, this one has proved to be more challenging for some people. So on the other side of your piece of paper, turn it over and do a slightly bigger circle. And you've got to divide it into 6. Now, the 6 is challenging. My recommendation is to do a slightly squashed X across the middle and then draw a line from top to bottom. So you should be able to see 6 different segments. I'll come back to those pictures. So what I'm going to do is in each of these spaces, there's 6 of them all up. In the first space, there's 1 idea. In the second space, there's 2 ideas. In the third space, 3 ideas, etc. We get all the way through to 6 ideas, okay? In each of those spaces, there's some key words that I want you to write down, either around the edge or inside those spaces. I'll take you through that. And there's also some bad maths. So I wanted to, sometimes, you know, the creatives get their way in these sessions, and but I wanted to have some space for the maths people, just to kind of get you thinking and create a little bit of cognitive dissonance, just to kind of make the ideas stick, okay? So in your first circle, typically top left-hand side of your page, I want you to draw a big star like that, 2 triangles if you're struggling with stars, 2 triangles like that. And the word I want you to write at the edge, around the edge there, is ownership, okay? Because one of the biggest problems with professional development plans is that people think it's kind of the organization's responsibility to take up that professional development plan, to help me develop it and to, you know, make sure that I do it. And the reality is that your boss is interested in your professional development only as far as it goes towards you doing your job. And your professional development plan needs to be way bigger than that, okay? And so you need to take ownership of your professional development plan. So this first idea that I want to give you is just that your professional development has to belong to you. You need to develop it. You need to own it and make sure that you're doing it, okay? Now, the bad bit of maths in that one, I've actually already talked about. So just next to the space or around the outside of the space, I just want you to write, hang on, actually, I've got a texter here. I'll do it for you as well. There's my texter gone. My maths on this one says 37% equals a mistake, okay? You see that down there? 37% equals a mistake, okay? The fact that only 37% of L&D professionals have a plan for their professional development, that's a mistake, okay? Second circle, okay? Here we go. Now, it's a little bit more complex, this one. You've got to do 2 lines across the middle. Don't write anything in between those 2 lines. At the top, you've got to do an arrow that's bent. They're coming from the middle, kind of like a clock, but the arrow at the top is bent. And down the bottom, you've got 2 arrows. Our 2 key words on this one are direction and priority. Now, the big question that you need to ask when it comes to direction is, where do you want to go? Okay, so the thing with most people's careers is that they meander around the place. They go, they get a job, that job finishes, they look for another job, they find another job, they move off to that one, kind of thing. And they can just end up meandering around the place in their career, and often in directions that they don't want to go. So sometimes when I ask people the question, where's your career going? Or what's the direction of your career? The answers can be a bit depressing, actually. So some of the people just go, oh, my career is going down the toilet. My career has hit a dead end. My career has hit a roadblock, kind of thing. My career has gone in a direction that I really never thought it would, and I'm really not happy with where it's gone. And this comes back to the idea of ownership, that it's your career and you need to work out where you want to take it. Okay, and the good news is, and the reason that that arrow is bent at the top there, the reason the arrow is bent is because your career is going in a direction at the moment. It is. Doesn't matter whether you've planned it or not, but your career is going in direction. But the good news is you can change that direction for your career. And part of what we're going to build here will help you to do that. Okay, so your career is going in the direction, but you can change the direction. The second question has to do with these 2 arrows going down at the bottom in terms of priority. And here we're talking about time, okay? And so when you've set the direction where you want to go, you've then got to ask 2 questions. So we're in the second box, so there's 2 ideas here. The 2 questions that you've got to ask are, how long is it going to take to get to where I want to go? So I go back to my question and say, okay, I want to be a lecturer at a university in learning and development. Okay, I don't, but I'm just saying as an example, I want to be there. How long do I think it's going to take before I go, okay, I want to be that lecturer in the next 5 years, let's say. Okay, so how long is it going to take to get there? And then the other arrow and the other question you've got to ask is, how much time do I have available to give to getting to where I want to go? Okay, so if I wanted to be a lecturer at a university, I would need to have a PhD. Okay, now if I said that I want to be there in 5 years, and I go, is 5 years long enough to actually get a PhD done? Well, I've got a family at the moment, probably not. And so I'd be going, hang on a tick, I need to adjust my plan or my expectations so that they can actually fit in the real world with my real life, okay? And the bad maths on this particular one is that down the bottom there, 2 equals 1, okay? So when we come to the question of direction and the question of priority, the one thing that those 2 things have in common, and you can write this across the middle of your page, is that there's often a gap, okay? So there's a gap in terms of direction. It's a gap between where my career is going and where I want it to go. That's one of the gaps. In terms of priority, there's a gap between how long I want it to take and how long it probably will take. And there's often a gap between how much time it will take to get to where I want to go and how much time I have available to give to that, okay? So we need to mind the gap. I'm not sure if you have those signs on the New Zealand railways. The idea of this little image was to actually kind of anchor this idea so that every time you're stepping onto a train, there's that little sign that says mind the gap. And every time you're stepping on the train, I want you to be reminded of these gaps, the gap between the direction of your career and where you want it to be, and the gap between the time gap between how much you're able to give it and how long you want it to get there. So that's my second circle. You should have 2 of them done now. My third circle looks like this one, okay? So you need to split it into 3 and just split it into 3 at the moment. Don't worry about the words yet. And the 4th circle, we're going to do 2 in 1 here. The 4th circle, that's pretty easy, split it into 4, okay? So you've now got 2 circles that are divided up there. Now, before we get to those 2 circles, we're going to use the discussion for a few minutes, okay? So, excellent, people are making some comments in there, but I actually want to make this discussion for the next little bit quite purposeful, okay? So what I want you to think about is over the last, I'll give you 2 years. Over the last 2 years, what have you done for professional development? Okay, so and I want you to start writing it into the chat. And on your piece of paper, I want you to start writing those things down in the space between all of the circles. Okay, so start writing down and pop them into the chat. What have you done for your professional development? So you might have attended a conference. So you can write that on your piece of paper and you can pop that into the chat. I'm hoping that as you're watching the chat, you'll get prompts for things which you perhaps hadn't considered were professional development, that other people go, yes, that's been my professional development. So have you read a book recently? I've got some, yeah, NZATD in offence, good, they're starting to trickle in, mainly reading recommended books. And as you see ideas popping up in the chat, I want you to write them down around your circles, and you need to get as many down as you can. So if you've read 2 books, then just put a ×2 next to it, okay? And these are trickling in thick and fast, which is awesome, okay? I went to a webinar yesterday afternoon, and the webinar with Michelle Ockers and Nigel Payne, that was awesome webinar. And I've been carrying Nigel's book in my backpack for 6 months. It's been taunting me because I haven't been getting to reading it. I've been listening to podcasts lately. TED Talks are flicking in there. People have watched webinars. Good. Okay, somebody's actually doing some formal study, doing a master's in technology. Good. Attending this conference. People have been writing blogs. That's good. It's not just about consumption. It can also be about how you're contributing. People have been tweeting and getting involved in Twitter chats. So by now, this chat is going great. That's awesome. What I want you to do is make sure that for you, because this session is about you, I want you to make sure that you're writing down the things that you've done on that piece of paper. Now, I did forget something in that first circle. This one you might remember. And in that first circle, I just actually want you to write your name in the middle, because you're the star in this one. It's actually why I started the session like I did. Often the first thing you see in a session is the presenter on screen, but I wanted to start off with something that just went, this is about you. And when I asked you the question about saying hello in another language, I kind of wanted to highlight the point that we're all different and that everybody is bringing something to the table here. So inside that first circle, you're just going to write your name. Don't write Neil, okay, and well, unless your name's Neil. But I want to make sure that this is focusing on you, okay? So you've now got a whole string of things written around your piece of paper in terms of what professional development you've done. So the next 2 ideas, these next 2 circles, will actually help you to kind of reflect on those learning things. Now, I'm hoping that a lot of you are familiar with this model, the 70-20-10 model. And so on each section, you can write around the edge there. It's got it there, formal, informal, and social learning, the 3 different ways that we do it. Formal is, of course, only 10%, they reckon. Social, another 20%. Informal learning of 70%. Or you can use the 3 E's model of education, exposure, and experience. Now, the bad bit of maths that goes with that one is that, I'll write it down here, 70 plus 20 plus 10 does not equal 100, okay? So there's our bad bit of math. 70 plus 20 plus 10 does not equal 100 because the sum of the parts, what is it? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. When you put all those things together, I actually like to think that 70, 20, 10 is actually 14,000, okay? Because learning, in my experience, multiplies benefit. Okay, so it's not just about 70 plus 20 plus 10. If I do 70 times 20 times 10, I get this massive benefit in terms of my professional development. Okay, now inside the space, what I want you to do is to look at the kind of stuff that you've been doing for your professional development. And I want you to just do X's, kind of like a heat map. Sorry, somebody just dropped something in my kitchen, if you heard that, which is directly above me. I want you to heat map what you've done in your personal professional development. So in this example here, I've done 3 things that were social learning. I've done 2 things that were informal learning. I've done 1 thing that was formal learning. Now, there may be some overlap. I'm happy for you to put X's in both spaces if you think that it counted for 2. There's no prizes here. This is for you to reflect on where do you spend your time learning. So do you do most of your learning just informally? I Google it, I look it up somewhere, I read a book or that. Do you do a lot of your learning in social settings where you're actually learning from other people? Perhaps you've had a mentor, perhaps you've been part of a community of practice. Is that how you learn? Or do you like formal education, or are you engaged in it at the moment? Somebody in the chat there was doing a master's. Similarly, and so that one will help you to see kind of how you're learning, okay? Now, in this box for 4, we're going to do the same heat mapping exercise, but I want you to have a look carefully at the 4 quadrants of this circle, okay? And write them down inside the circle. Your role, your industry, your career, and your profession, okay? Now, those things are important, okay? One of the things that Laura Overton discovered in that research I talked about before was that 71% of people only ever do professional development to make them do their current role better and faster, okay? 71%, that's nuts, okay? That should be my bad maths there, okay? Now, what we need to be doing is recognizing that if we go back to our direction question and we say, hey, I want my career to go in a particular direction, then we have to consider doing professional development that includes other industries from the one we're currently in, potentially other professions, and professional development that suits our long-term career direction, okay? So at the moment, I'm working in the social media world. I'm telling you where I work, not telling you my name. You can work all that out later. Find me on LinkedIn and see what I do, kind of thing. This is about you, okay? My example here is that my current role is head of learning design. My industry is social media marketing. My profession is learning and development or learning design. And my career is actually lined up with that one because I've made a deliberate choice for my career to be in learning design. Okay, I don't particularly want to go into learning management. I don't want to go into organizational management. I love learning design. Okay, so that's where I want to be. So I want you to do the same heat mapping exercise to say, where have you been investing professional development time? Okay, just looking at what you listed and put X's next to the things in terms of where you've been doing professional development time. And the bit of bad maths that we have on this one is that 25% of 0, 25% of 0 equals minus, okay? So if you're not spending any time in one of these quadrants, that's a bad thing, is what I'm saying, okay? 25% of your time about your role, your current role, 25% about your industry. I'm not fussed about the maths, okay? Not fussed if you want to say it's 30, I'm going to spend 30% or I need to do 50% of my time on my role. What I am fussed about is where you're not giving any time in your professional development to all of those things, okay? That's the stuff that you've got to pay attention to. So we've now done 4. Okay, so the first one was around ownership. Second one was around direction and priority. Third one was around how you're learning, okay, informally, formally, or socially. The fourth one was around where is your learning focused on your role, your industry, your profession, your career. We're going to skip number 5 for the moment, okay? And I want you to turn over now to the 6th one on the back. Turn over to this one. And we're going to talk about the sort of stuff that needs to go into a professional development plan, okay? At the end of this, we'll begin actually building a plan. So for me, the big takeaway from this session will be that you'll actually be ready, you'll be positioned to put your plan together, okay? Now, I've pre-drawn these because, well, really, you know, the artwork is pretty complex. Not really. Okay, so let's have a look at this first one up here. Everybody likes this one. That's a brain for those of you who aren't familiar with my iconography. And the first thing I want you to look up there is knowledge, okay? Part of what you need to do for your job is you need to know stuff, okay? Now, that's not rocket science. We learning and development people are pretty kind of happy with the ideas of knowledge. The only problem with knowledge at the moment is there's so much of it. Like, we've got information just blasting at us. It's like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant at the moment. And it's not so much nowadays about, can I get enough knowledge? All I need to do to get enough knowledge really is to pick up my phone, okay? And I can do that. But what we need to focus on in here is around knowledge management. How do we actually manage the stuff that's coming at us? Okay, so I would suggest in terms of knowledge that you may be able to be quite specific in terms of the professional development that you do, that you might need to know about something. But I would suggest that for a lot of people, the big challenge in knowledge is about managing it and keeping it organized and keeping it accessible. Some great tools out there. I use Digo all the time as a bookmarking tool to kind of write down, to bookmark things and tag them. The tagging process encodes them in my head frameworks. And so managing that knowledge that I've got coming in is really important. Again, don't write anything inside the circle here at the moment. The next one that I want you to look at, again, another favorite of, hang on, I'm trying not to show you them all at once. Another favorite is for learning and development people are skills. And that there you're going, what on earth is that icon? That's a shovel, okay? So I've gone for like a really hard skill here that we need. What you might need to learn how to use Excel. I got to, I think I was about 35 before I managed to avoid Excel, and suddenly I found myself in a role where I needed to learn it and I needed to know how to use Excel. My kids still joke about how I created these Excel spreadsheets for them doing their chores and had all this conditional formatting and pop-ups and things. So skills, what are the skills that you need? And again, these 6 ideas across all of the things, they're not separate ideas. You've got to keep throwing yourself back to say, what's the direction I want my career to go? What are the skills that I need to actually take my career in that direction? Okay. Now, I'll go to one of the tough ones next. And we hold it up here. And this one there is emotions. Okay. A little heart. This one's a tough one. People don't like talking about emotions. They don't particularly like thinking about them. I have actually really liked over the last 18 months since the world went nuts with COVID, that we seem to have become a bit more human. We seem to be a bit more accepting that people have lives, that people have feelings, that we need to engage some soft skills here. And so I'm pleased about that, because there's a stack of research out there in terms of psychological safety within organizations that says paying attention to this kind of emotional, touchy-feely stuff is actually super important. And the reason I put that one after knowledge and skills is because, I don't know about you, I've met stacks of people who have all of the knowledge that they need to do their job. They have all of the skills that they need to do their job, but their career has completely stalled or plateaued. Okay. They've built their skills up and they've got awesome skills. They've built their knowledge up and they've got amazing knowledge, and then it plateaus like that because they don't have the emotional skills. They're a jerk. They're painful to get on with. They're sexist. They're racist. They're all of those things which we're not supposed to be. And those things get in the way of our careers. And so we need to pay attention to them in our professional development planning And so some ideas that can be a hard thing to develop around self-awareness. It can be a bit of a painful kind of process. I would recommend getting a mentor if you identify that this is something where you go, that's something I need help in, getting feedback from peers and expanding your emotional vocabulary. Particularly, I don't know if this is the case in New Zealand, but in Australia, us males are at a massive disadvantage because we just don't have a vocabulary to express how we're feeling. We're pretty much angry or hungry, and there's a few other ones maybe around that, but you need to expand your vocabulary around your emotional world there, okay? Now, my next one, and all of us L&D people will like this one simply because it has a little pyramid in it. And we do love our pyramids. And this is our well-being. And this one's a little bit controversial as well. So the little pyramid on the side there is, of course, that kind of healthy life pyramid thing that's got lots of fruit and vegetables and plenty of rest and drinking. Yes, that's a good idea. Hang on. Drinking lots of water, all of those things. Now, our well-being, interestingly, it's also come into play, and it includes our mental health as well. It's come into play again over this last 18 months. There's been a bit more focus on it. People have been a bit more open to discussions around people's health, around people's well-being. I mean, I now wear a Fitbit, and at 10 minutes to each hour, it sends me a little reminder. And it usually says, you've only got 240 steps to go to reach the 250 steps that we recommend you take in an hour. And it's this constant little reminder for me to go, you know what, Neil, your work, you sit in front of a computer all day. You need to get off your backside and you need to move a bit. I drink lots of water while I work because drinking lots of water is apparently good for me, but it also makes me get out of my chair and go upstairs to the bathroom on a regular basis. And so the thing with well-being is, and the little pyramid of well-being is, it's a bit like Maslow's hierarchy. Maslow's hierarchy as a hierarchy is, shall we say, bollocks, you know, the whole pyramid thing. And it's the same with the healthy eating, the healthy food thing. There is no pyramid, okay? I can't say that clearly enough. All of those things matter. You've had a massive weekend, you're a little bit hungover, you turn up to work on Monday morning and you can't think straight. Doesn't matter how much knowledge is in your head, your body is saying, we need a break. You had a really bad night's sleep because the newborn baby decided that it wanted to be awake for 4 hours in the middle of the night. You can't think straight. You're a little bit cranky with the other people in the office. They go, hey, you had a bad night with the baby last night. They give you a bit of space kind of thing. There's no way our well-being isn't affecting our work, our productivity, and our career, okay? So you've got to pay attention to that in your professional development program. Next one is over on the side here, which is your network, okay? Now, today's world has gone socially mad and your network needs to be good. Did you notice 70% of jobs aren't advertised? They actually just go out through people's connections, okay? So if you're thinking about your career and you're putting together a plan that says, I want to be in a particular place in a particular time frame, you actually need a network to get there. Nobody is flying alone anymore. Okay, so if you've got it open and you can do it quickly, what I want you to do is to go onto LinkedIn on a separate tab, don't close me down, go onto LinkedIn, quickly grab your URL and paste it into the discussion, okay? Now, if you're watching the discussion, all you should need to do is click on that link and it will open up their LinkedIn profile in another tab, okay? And at the end of the session, you'll have potentially 50 or 60 different LinkedIn profiles open. And all you then need to do is go through them and click connect, 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 connect. And you will have an amazing network of L&D people just coming out of this conference. I would love to see that happen as a result of this presentation. Yes, there's the first one. Thank you, Nicole. Well done. Oh, they're flying in now. Good. Just click on them, as many as you can. You've got about 10 seconds before I move on to the next one here. As many as you can. And let's get people's networks building up. I did jump into that the meeting space on the platform, which was great. I did what I would do at any conference, which is I first went and connected with the people who I already knew, some of the other presenters, some of the people from NZATD, but I'm happy to connect to everyone. Okay, so send me a connection request, send other people a connection request. This is the one time when you're allowed to do that without including a little note. If you want to include a little note, you can just say, hey, good to meet you at the NZATD conference, would be great to connect. And all of these lovely people whose things are still trickling in, that's awesome. Okay, the last little one is purpose, okay? And that little picture there is, you can tell it's a sailing boat, okay? So I love sailing. I've got a little boat just down off the end of the wharf, down the street kind of thing. And so the question of purpose is about what floats your boat, okay? So for me, I love sailing and I love learning design. And so when I think about those things, when I talk about my professional development, I'm like, okay, I need to invest some time into my professional development in regards to the things that I love. Now, here's where this little diagram is going to start packing a bit of a punch. So you've now got the 6 things in there, okay? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to reflect on your current state, okay? So when you think, for example, in terms of your career and your direction, we go back to the 1s and the 2s of your direction and priority, where you want to go. Where's your knowledge up to with that, okay? So I'm just doing these in a, I did come prepared, but so what I want you to do is I want you to rate where you are. Now, you're not going to show this to anybody. This is just for you, okay? You don't need to pass this to your manager to say, you know what, I really don't know what I'm doing, and I've only put 1 little mark in there. Or you don't need to show this to the HR team to say, you know what, my emotional intelligence, if I listened to my partner, they'd say, you need to get a clue, okay? You don't need to show this to anybody. This is just for your reflection to go in terms of your career planning. What do you need to do? Where do you need to put your focus? My well-being stuff, I would put it out reasonably well, my well-being stuff. I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. I do circus classes. I look after my mental health. I drink lots of water. I get a good night's sleep. All of that kind of stuff. So go around the 6 spaces, and just for a minute, and I want to make sure that this is kind of a safe space for you. If you're looking at this, because I've talked with some people about this stuff before, and it can be a bit confronting for people when they reflect on where they are and where they're going. And I want to make sure that you're feeling good. If you're not feeling good about this, then I want to make sure that you know you can talk to me afterwards. If you want to take it offline, just find me on LinkedIn. There is only one of me in the world as far as I've found so far, so I'm pretty easy to find. And I'm happy to talk, happy to support you as you kind of think through this stuff. Because if you suddenly go, oh my goodness, I've been working in a field that I really don't like for the last 15 years, that can be a bit kind of distressing. So make sure that you're not kind of just isolated if that's kind of what's happening for you there, okay? So by now, you've now got 6 things here, okay? So what I'm hoping that we've got to the point now is that we've actually built a framework within which we can start to build a professional development plan, okay? So if we go back through them, we've taken this question of ownership and to say, this is my career and I need to take responsibility for it. The second thing was around the ideas of direction and priority, and where do I want my career to go? How long do I want to take it? Third section was around how am I learning things, socially, informally, or formally. The 4th section is where is my learning focused on my role, my industry, my career, or my profession. And the 6th section was around the different areas that we need to include in our professional development planning, okay? Now, they're all down here on the floor, okay? So if I get each of these bits of paper, the way to build a professional development plan is that you actually have to put all of these things together. Like you actually got to hold them together when you do your professional development planning. Don't go and make this massive plan to go and do a PhD if it's not actually where you want your career to go, okay? Don't go and plan a whole bunch of social learning if you're a really strong introvert and it drives you nuts and it exhausts you, okay? Work with who you are and hold all of those ideas together. Don't go and throw all of your planning into your future career and find that you can't actually keep up with your current role, okay? Somebody commented in one of the chats I think it was Diane's session, we're talking about, our human skills will keep us in our jobs. And I wasn't sure that I agreed with that, because our human skills we need to have a whole plan. We need human skills, absolutely. We need emotional intelligence, we need empathy, we need all of those things. But we do need knowledge, and we do need skills, and we do need a network, and we've got to hold all of those ideas together. Okay. What we want, I haven't told you number 5. Let's go back to number 5. Okay. Number 5, I just want you to draw. Oh, I didn't draw a picture for this one. It's not hard. Do 5 dot points down inside that big circle on the front page. While I quickly, and I've already screwed up that page, so I can't show you. It says 1, 2, 4. It looks like that, okay? 5 dot points. Now, in my time, I've got 4 minutes left, and I am going to spend some time answering questions, but I actually just want to create a space for you to sit and think, okay, to reflect on your professional development, okay? Because what we want to be able to build is a professional development plan that will transform you, okay? Part of the reason I love working in learning and development is that it changes people's lives, okay? And the problem is we spend all of our days doing stuff to change other people's lives, and we don't often take much time to go, how do I change my own life? Okay, we get that possibility paralysis happening, okay? So I'm going to be a little bit quiet. I will make some kind of comments as we go here. But in this 5 thing, okay, I don't want you to fill it, okay? But I do want you to start it with an idea about what can you actually do? What action are you going to take as a result of listening through this session? What action are you going to take following the conference, perhaps, following the session, perhaps? There's a bit of research around that says when people go to events like this and they get inspired to make change, that if they don't make those changes within 24 to 48 hours of the event, then they're just not going to make those changes. Okay, so I want you to kind of put down an action, and I want you to put down a trigger for it. So you might kind of go, I need to build my network more. It's terrible, okay? So what's the trigger for building your network going to be? So is it going to be next time you open up your laptop, you're going to put LinkedIn as one of your bookmarks, and you're going to spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn, okay? So find a trigger that goes with the action that you want to take. So there's not just a nice idea on a piece of paper, but it's actually triggered. If you need to, or if it's going to help, oh, there's my phone. There's my clock up the top there. Get your phone. See, it's my clock so that I stay on time. But get your phone out and, open up your calendar and go, next Tuesday, I'm going to put a reminder in to do the second step on that plan. If we bring all of those things together, we can end up with a professional development plan that is intentional, takes us where we want to go. It's incremental, bit by bit by bit, we just keep adding to it. And it's intelligent, that actually understands how people learn, understands how careers are built, understands how professional development plans are built. That's what we want to make in a professional development plan. I am going to go to questions and answers, but I do want to say thanks for participating. So let's have a look in this chat. So if you've been holding a question up until now and I haven't answered along the way, then pop it into the chat. I'm going to need to make that a bit bigger so that I can read it. Whole bunch of LinkedIn profiles. Yeah, somebody's commented, oh, I'm going to steal this for the team. Awesome. So I've actually used this kind of model to design the whole learning culture and the whole learning framework for our organization. And so when people think about learning in our organization, then they're thinking about formal, informal, and social. They're thinking about learning for their role, for learning for their industry and social media marketing, learning for their career, where they want to go. And it's a bit mind-blowing, because people are actually already doing a whole stack of professional development. And when we start tracking it and saying to people, hey, this is part of your professional development, and when we start identifying the gaps, it's so powerful. So those templates, as in the diagrams, somebody asked there, I've only ever used them seriously as hand-drawn things. When it's, I find that the physical act of writing down helps kind of encode them in people's heads. Maybe I need to make them into a template. Maybe somebody wants to make them into a template who's more clever than me. But yeah, totally. And again, in one sense, it's not. I mean, the 70-20-10 is not my model, but different parts of that have developed from ideas that other people I've learned from over the years, kind of thing. I mean, I totally acknowledge that I stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to the stuff that I talk about. And so, yes, please take this model, use it, and build some good professional development plans. But can you see what's interesting here is that already the learning and development people are going, this would be so good for other people, okay? And I want to make sure that you keep it, that you do it for you, okay? Because this is about transforming you, because the best way to create a space, a safe space for other people to learn and grow, is to be a safe space of learning and growing. So if you're modeling it, if you're living it, that will allow you to create that space for other people. Any more questions? Yeah, nice to see that somebody got stuck with that possibility for Alice's stuff. That's so good. I'm glad that that's helpful. I'm totally contactable. I'm not telling you my name. I'm not telling you where I work. Find me, okay? And I'm very happy to help, very happy to talk, very happy to listen. If you have any questions about it, then I'm very happy to answer questions. I will be in and out over the next couple of days. I'm not in every session, but please get in touch. Somebody says I need a knowledge management system. Who has one? So now my favorite, so you need to find a guy called Harold Jarche, Jarche. He runs a program called Personal Knowledge Management, and it's brilliant. I did it about 4 years ago. I know Michelle Ockers has done it, and I think she went back and did it again. It was so good. But Personal Knowledge Management, yeah, that's my one-stop shop. Go and talk with Harold Jarche and find his stuff there. I'm not sure of your question down the bottom there. Somebody asked, you mean for yourself and your PD? Let's see. Throw many other questions. And I'll say hello to Jane Hudson. Saw in the comments there. Got to work with Jane on a big project at the start of this year. She's amazing. If you're a learning designer, big shout out to Jane there. Nice to see you, Jane. And she's Australian. Ooh. So I'm happy to stay in the chat. Officially, my time is up here. So I look forward to seeing you around the rest of the conference over the next couple of days.